Head over to BoardGamePrices.com to find the best price and availability for thousands of games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. I can't believe 2018 is coming to an end, so it's time for my favorite games of the year video. Now I typically do two videos. This one, which is a best categories, all the different types of games. I'm going to tell you about my best ones, and I'm also going to tell you about some runners-up and many of the categories to try to put as many different games on your radar as possible. I'll also be doing a top 10 games of the year coming soon as well. Also, all of the games that I've done, obviously I've mostly reviewed as well, and in the description of this video I'll have links to all the videos that I've done for these, so if you want to learn more, it's easy to check those out. Just click the links below. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, for children's game, this was an easy one for me because I love this game, but it also works very well with kids. A lot of times when you play kids games, it's great for kids, but the adults have to sort of hold back or, have a different variant that they play with. But with this one, the kids sometimes even do better than the adults because it has to do with memory, and I usually hate memory games, but not this one. It's Memoir, and this is brought to us by Stronghold Games. I know this game came out in 2017, I think first overseas, but it actually came out this year in the United States, so it's the first time it got released here from Stronghold Games, so I'm putting it on this list. It is a memory game that I typically hate memory games, but it is so fun. You learn these patterns, and as the game goes on, you learn more and more about these patterns. They never change, and so as the game goes on, you really get to realize how much you can really memorize. And everybody that I play this with that does not like memory games really like this one. And again, the kids do even better. The artwork's cute and kidsy, trying to find these little animals. It is an extremely fun game. And again, it's awesome that kids can play it and do even better than the parents sometimes without any variance or any holding up. That's why it's my children's game of the year, Memoir from Stronghold Games. All right, for dice game, let me give you a couple of runner-ups first. A pure dice game, Gone Clever. This is one of those typical roll and writes. It's sort of an engine building roll and write. It's very non-thematic, very boring looking, but it's a very good dice game. I believe this one was actually nominated for the Kennerspiel des Jahres award for the year. And so if you like roll and write games, check that one out for sure. I think it's being brought over to North America in a little bit, but you might still have to import it at the time of this video. Another one that I want to bring to your attention is called Steamrollers. This is probably one of my favorite roll and writes that I have. This got brought to us by Stronghold Games. It was reprinted this year. It actually had come out a couple years ago on Kickstarter, and it's been out in the wild, and now it just got reprinted with larger distribution. So it's not really a 2018 game anyway, but it really did get brought to here this year. This is a sort of a stock and pick up and deliver game, but it's a roll and write game where you're rolling dice and figuring out what to do, and there's a board and you're drawing and stuff. It's a really cool thing. So if you like roll and writes and you want something a little bit heavier than a small little roll and write, this is a cool one. But the one that wins, actually before I get to that one more is, it's called Speakeasy Blues. This is sort of a worker placement game, but it's a dice selection, rolling, and drafting game where you're trying to figure out which dice to pull off the board to open up spots. You're gonna be rolling dice, and then you're gonna be drafting from a pool and manipulating those dice. But then it's worker placement, set collection, stuff like that. But the dice is the main part of how you select your actions. That was an excellent game as well. But the winner for me isn't really a pure dice game at all, but dice is how you pretty much do everything in this game. It's called Space Base. This is from AEG. And in this game, on a player's turn, they're rolling a dice, the two dice, and everybody gets to choose what to do with their dice on their own. Kind of like Machi Koro style, if you will, where everyone gets to do something on their turn with the dice that someone rolls, or Catan, if you will. And so you get to select, do I want to use both dice and add them up, or I just want to use one die, and you're going to be doing different things with those dice depending on whether it was you that rolled it or somebody else, and you're building up an engine of different cards that give you different abilities based upon the probabilities of those dice. So yes, there's a lot more to this game than just the dice, but the dice is the main mechanism that you're using to pick your decisions throughout the game. Much like a roll and write, dice are getting rolled, you're selecting something with those dice, some different decisions, and then you're doing an action based on that. This game was fantastic. Great engine builder, dice rolling game. Space Base from AEG. For a two-player game, now sometimes games come out that are not just two-player, but they're really two-player. Like in a previous year, Santorini, it's really a two-player game. You could play it with 3 or 4, but it felt like it was designed to be a two-player game, and it plays best at 2. Another game like that is not the winner, but a runner-up for me is called War Chest. This is also from AEG. This is a 2-player 2 or 4 player abstracted strategy game where it's a bag builder where you get these big thick poker chips and you're drawing them out of a bag and you're playing them out on the board. You're trying to control different areas, and it's a really good mix of sort of abstracted strategy and a bag building element. And it's a fantastic game, and I'd like it best with 2. I really think this is a 2-player game. With 4, it's okay. The teams are fine, but in my opinion, this is really a 2-player game. So if you like those abstracted strategy games, check that one out. But the winner for me is one that hasn't gotten really much buzz at all this year, but I loved it when it came out, and I still love it. It's called Prowler's Passage. This is from Renegade Game Studios, designed by Alex Cavern. This is really a 2-player tug of war on 5 different sort of tracks, if you will. You're moving around a board. Every time you play it, it's different. You're trying to create passages, long passages around the city. You're stealing goods. You're gonna be getting points for having a lot of the same goods, but you're trying to stop the opponent to get theirs. You're trying to move up and down tracks, because at the end of the different rounds and scorings, you're only getting points for the tracks that you actually lead in. And so it has tug of wars like crazy. It's just a fantastic tactical 2-player game that only takes about 20 minutes to play, but the replayability and the strategies of going back and forth against stopping them is just fantastic. It's what I like in those 2-player games. Hard decisions, it's quick, it's fun. Prowler's Passage. For reprint of the year, this was a tough one for me. One runner-up I want to mention is Gunky Mono. This was actually one that I helped Renegade Game Studios kind of bring in and get ready to get out. This was a reprint of Heartland, one of my favorite games. And in this game, it's a tile laying game where you're laying tiles to try to gain points, but you're always deciding, do I want to take points now, or when I lay this tile, am I going to move up this other track to help me get a lot of points later? Am I going to invest in big points towards the end of the game to try to catch up? It is a really fantastic game. If you haven't seen Gunky Mono yet or played it, check that one out. Again, my review is in the description of this video. Another one is Container, the 10th anniversary Jumbo Edition. This came from Mercury Games. This is a fantastic economic game with these gigantic, huge, like 3-pound, it feels like, resin ships that you're moving around. Sometimes you're going to be creating things in a factory. You're going to be shipping those off to other players. They're going to be buying it. You're going to be buying containers. You're going to be moving it onto an island, scoring points. You have hidden goals. If you like economic games, this thing is amazing, and it almost won. And in any other year, it would have won, but in this year, Fireball Island has to take the cake. I played it a lot as a kid, and Restoration Games just did an amazing job reprinting this game and redeveloping it, taking it from a roll and move game to a hand management and card selection game, and a lot of different goals and things they added, and they made the island bigger, all this stuff. Unbelievable job. Restoration always does this. They know how to do take games and reprint them and redevelop them. Fireball Island is my reprint of the year. For expansion of the year, 2 runners-up. The first one is called the Sagrada 5 to 6 player expansion, and don't let that name fool you. Yes, you can play now with 5 or 6 players, but the big thing with this expansion is they introduced a private dice pool, which I think gives you more longer-term strategies. Everyone has their own dice pool that they can select 1 die from each turn, along with the public one. So you already have things that you're thinking about when it's other players' turn, keeps the downtime down, and it actually changes the game quite a bit. If you didn't even like Sagrada that much before, you'll want to try it with this because it might change your opinion. Another one is Downforce Danger Circuit, the expansion for Downforce from Restoration Games, a racing game that they brought out last year. And this gave us 2 new boards with loops and all, a way that you can't go over certain spots. It really just changed the mechanisms and adding a lot more new power cards too. But the winner, no brainer here, Scythe Rise of Fenris. Oh my gosh, this game had a campaign mode that you could go through, and each time it's opening up new and new mechanisms. Or if you don't like campaigns, you can just look at the sheet at the end of the rules, and it tells you what the different modules do. I believe there's like 11 different modules, even 1 co-op module, and it introduces new tokens, new ways to play the game. All of them have new mechanisms and gives you new strategies. So I love that you can play it as a campaign, and even at the end of the campaign, you can play with the modules, or you can just play with them without doing the campaign. and it really breathed a lot of new life into one of my favorite games, Scythe. So it's really a no-brainer. Scythe Rise of Fenris expansion of the year. For artwork, for me, this is a game that I did some videos on. It's not quite available yet in North America. You'll have to import it over from Europe. It's called Detective Club, and this is a social party game where I basically say it's like Dixit or Mysterium meets Spyfall, where there's a social deduction aspect, but there's all these cards like a Dixit or a Mysterium, where there's these big cards that have all this gorgeous artwork on, and everyone's gonna be selecting those and playing in front of them, trying to trick other people, trying to blend in with others. But really, the artwork is unbelievable in this. Like many of those other games, it really was a no-brainer here that this game is that beautiful, and that's Detective Club from iGames. All right, for Party Game of the Year, a couple of runner-ups first. The first one is Not So Fast. I did a playthrough of this where you can actually see us playing it. The best way to see this game because it is so fun. It's basically a speed reaction game, but there's enough thinking that it's not just about who's the fastest. It's really you have to think about things before you react, and it's just a really fun game. That's from Smirk and Laughter Games, which is an imprint of Smirk and Dagger Games. Check that video out, see if that one might be for you. This next one, probably in a normal year, would have been my favorite party game of the year. It's called Just One. I recently reviewed this. It is a very simple, streamlined party game where you're one clue giver is trying to get everyone to guess, a word from everybody else. However, when the other players give clues, if anybody's clues match anyone else's, they get removed. So you're trying to think of a clue that's not too obvious because it might get removed, but you're also not trying to go too far out that they don't know what you're talking about. So this is a perfect example of a very simple party game that is fantastic. But my winner is from CGE. It's called Trap Words. This takes an old classic game like Taboo, where someone's a clue giver and they're trying to get their team to guess the clue, but there's a certain amount of words you can't say. Well, in this, it takes that to a next level and allows the other teams to come up with what those words are that player can't say, and they don't know what they are. So they're trying to cleverly describe something to get their teammates to guess it by moving around those trap words, but they don't know what they are. And my gosh, is it fun? It's easy. It brings a classic mechanism back into a more gamery way. And it's such a good cerebral experience, much like how Codenames was, where it's easy to play, but it's really thinky. And that's why it's my party game of the year, Trap Words. For Innovative Game of the Year, this one was a no-brainer for me and probably for many. It's Keyforge. This is the game designed by Richard Garfield, coming out by Fantasy Flight. It's sort of a CCG, like tactical card gameplay, but every single deck is unique. Literally, every deck, not one deck will be the same. It's not about building decks. Actually, you can't build decks in any organized play. You buy a deck for $10, that's your deck. You just got to figure out what's in there, learn how to use it, and your deck has an original name that's printed on the deck, and nobody else will have that exact deck. You might have some overlap with some cards with somebody else, but no one's going to have two same decks. It's just the mathematics and the printing capabilities and the way they even logistically do this is mind-blowing, and the gameplay is excellent too. That's why it's Innovative Game of the Year, Keyforge. For Components of the Year, this is one that came out very early in the year from CMON, Rising Sun. This is designed by Eric Lang, and this is, wow, a behemoth of a game, but really the components set this thing aside. The way everything, when I say components, I also talking about table presence and the look and feel as well as everything together. And wow, the miniatures in this game are amazing. I took a lot of close-up shots of these minis. Also, even just all the other components are really high quality. Now, I did kickstart this game, so I ended up getting the deluxe edition, which actually helped with this, with the metal coins and all the, like the domino style feeling tiles and stuff. But even if you didn't get that and you get the base game, the components in this game, wow, they're amazing, and that's Rising Sun. All right, for Card Game of the Year, first of all, there's a game, I mentioned Keyforge earlier as Innovative Game, that easily could have been in this list. It's probably going to be on a lot of players' Card Game of the Year list. I already talked about that. Another one that just came out, again, I think this one you have to import for right now, is called Claim 2. Claim 2 is a 2-player trick-taking game based off of the first game, which was called Claim. It's designed by Scott Almes, which, by the way, is being brought to North America by Deepwater Games, the same people that brought us Welcome 2 this year. So if you can't get Claim 2, you can get Claim very soon, early next year, and it's just as good, so don't worry about it. You can just grab that one. When Claim 2 finally comes out, you can get that, or you can just import it. It is a 2-player trick-taking game that works fantastic. Each of the suits is a different faction, and each faction has a special ability that triggers when you play the game, when you play the cards, and it's hard to get a 2-player trick-taking game to work well. This one does. But my card game of the year is The Mind. And I know some people might say, well, it's not really a card game. It is a co-op game. This game could have fit in 3 categories. Card game of the year, co-op game of the year, family game of the year for me. But I decided to put it in card game of the year because it literally is nothing but a card game. It's a small card game box. It's a small card game price. There's nothing in the game but cards, and all you're doing in the game is playing cards. So it is a card game, but the real twist is you're trying to play these cards at the right time, in sequential order with other players. But of course, the trick is nobody can talk. It's all about reading each other, trying to be one mind, and reading each other's body language, whether they don't have a card that's close and they're looking in a different direction, or whether you're playing a card down right at the right time and you don't really go and you're going back and forth and you're reading other people and you're trying to get good with each other doing it. Very simple concept, but wow, is this a fantastic game. Card game of the year, The Mind. In North America, this is brought over by Pandasaurus Games. All right, for family game of the year, now I already mentioned Fireball Island as my reprint of the year, and that was definitely in this category for me, but it didn't win for me. Another one that really comes up is My Little Scythe from Stonemaier Games. This is one that sort of took the scythe mechanisms and really made it a lot easier and a lot less going on, but has that feel, but is sort of family-like. The artwork, you're throwing pies instead of combat, you're trying to get apples and get to the castle, and it's like more of a family-style game, but it has those mechanisms of scythe that makes it a really good family game. The components are great, so that was a runner-up for me, My Little Scythe for Stonemaier Games. But my winner is the new Camel Up. This game is so fantastic. I mean, it's 2018 version, it's 2nd edition. It has its own entry in Board Game Geek because not only did they change all the artwork and make a board that has a pop-up, palm tree and such. That's all and good, but they really added 2 new mechanisms to the base game that really makes this game shine even better than the original. One of the mechanisms was in the expansion Super Cup for the original Camel Up, which was a way that when you play with 6 or more players, you can bet partnerships with other players, which means this game now plays excellent, all player counts all the way up through 8 players. Excellent right out of the box in the base game, and that is huge. The other thing they added was these crazy camels that go backwards around the track that can really shake things up in the race, and it's simple, but it does add another twist to the game. But in general, Camel Up is, when I first played it, I didn't really like it that much, way back when it came out a few years ago and won the Spiel des Jahres, but this game, my gosh, every time I play it, I like it more and more and more. It is a very simple, fun game where you're betting on camels. Nobody owns any of them. And these camels are going to be stacking and moving in all sorts of crazy ways. And always there's stand-up moments. Always there's hooting and hollering. You put this game down and there's going to be fun being had. It's easy to learn. It's quick. It's 30, 35 minutes. And it's just everyone, all ages can really play this game. It is a ton of fun. My family game of the year, Camel Up. All right, most immersive game. This is a new category for this year for me, and so a close runner-up for me is Chronicles of Crime from Lucky Duck Games. This is a crime-solving cooperative game where you're using an app to scan different cards and players and people and locations and trying to learn things about what's going on. But there's also a virtual reality or VR section where you go into some of the rooms and you can look around all the way around in 360 degrees and look for clues and yell those clues out to other players. And other players are looking for cards of those clues. And then later on, you're going to be scanning those clues and asking people about them. It's a very immersive experience where you really do feel like detectives and you're trying to solve crimes. There's many crimes available on the base game and there's more coming. So if you like crime-solving cooperative games, Chronicles of Crime was very immersive. But the winner for this is also, oddly enough, a detective game, a co-op game that does similar things, Detective, a modern crime board game from Portal Games. This is a more bigger, grandiose game, where each of the Chronicles of Crime, you know, it might last 60 to 90 minutes, where Detective, each case lasts 3, maybe more hours. And it's, for me, that one just felt a little bit more immersive, more involved, more going on. You're looking at databases. You're also, you know, possibly having things to look at in the real world that they want you to search that will come into the case that's fictitious. So you're like constantly going out to the real world, but then coming back to this fictitious case. And it really was immersive when it did that. So if you're looking for an immersive experience, detective-wise, co-op-wise, both of these games are amazing. You really should get both. And even though they're similar in what they do, they're both so different that if you like that genre, you should really get both of these. But Detective Modern Crime Board Game, most immersive game of the year for me. All right, Cooperative Game of the Year for me. Now, I've already mentioned a few co-op games that would have been on this list a little bit, which was just the ones I just mentioned, Chronicles of Crime, you know, Detective Modern Crime Board Game. But for me, it's Spy Club. This is from Renegade Game Studios. And this game, I am giving it to because the co-op nature of this is awesome, in the fact that everyone's working together, of course, like co-op, but you're trying to find this, you know, these different crimes. You're trying to solve these neighborhood crimes as kids. The mechanisms are very streamlined. The artwork is amazing. But what really makes this game be the game of the year is that each time you play the game, it's going to feel different. You play 5 games in a campaign. Each game takes, you know, 45 minutes or so to play. And at the end of each game, you're going to unlock a new thing in the game. And there's like 40 different modules that you can unlock over the course of the game. And when you unlock them, it's not like a legacy, like, oh, once you unlock it once, if you ever saw it again, you wouldn't want to see it. No, it's like it just introduces a new and thematic way to play the game. New actions available, new things you can't do, new things that twist. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's amazing. Every time you play this game, after every game, something new is going to unlock, and they start to stack, and it's just really, really cool. It gives this game a lot of legs, a lot of longevity, and from a cooperative game experience, it's awesome too. That's Spy Club from Renegade Game Studios. All right, strategy game of the year. A couple of runners up. One is Yellow and Yangtze. This is sort of a re-implementation of Tigris and Euphrates from Reiner Knizia. This was brought to us by Grail Games, and this is a fantastic, very mean strategy game where you're putting out causing different revolts and wars, and you're trying to basically gather cubes of different colors. But much like many of Reiner Knizia's games, you're trying to have whatever color you have the least of, that's your points. That point scoring always works well, but this game is filled with tension from the first turn on. You're creating alliances with some players at some points, but going against them at other points. It's really fantastic. Yellow and Yangtze. Another runner-up is called Wildlands, a game I typically don't think I would like, where there's a bunch of miniatures on the board, you're moving them around, you're trying to collect these different crystals, but you're also trying to do combat with other players and destroy them. Doesn't sound like something I normally like, but oh my gosh. What this really is a card game in disguise. This game's all about hand management, where you're playing cards, and that card has multiple uses, and you've got to decide when to use that card for what, and you're always giving up something good in order to play that card for what you really want to do. And it's all about looking at the board, looking at your cards, figuring out what you're going to do, what your strategy is, and it's always ever changing in between the turns. People are doing things, your hand management's changing, and just the brutally hard decisions of the card play of this makes this game absolutely amazing. Wildlands, it's designed by Martin Wallace, brought to us by Osprey Games. Both the games I just mentioned are probably heavier than this game. This is probably more of a Kenner Spiel level strategy, so it's not super deep. It's more like a next step game, is Gizmos. This is a engine building game. This is, I call this sort of Splendor 2.0, where there's more going on than Splendor, but it's not too hard. It's quick. It plays in about 45, no more than 60 minutes with 4 players. And this is an engine building game where you're pulling these cool marbles out of this thing, and as you do things, all these different engines start stacking on each other. Hey, if I pick a red marble, I get to pick a random marble. If I build a blue gizmo, I get to now pick a marble of my choice. If I do this and this, and these things start to trigger, and like halfway through the game, you're taking a turn that is like behemoth, and you're doing this, which triggers this, which triggers that, which triggers that, and I love that in games. This game is super streamlined. There's only 4 things you can do on your turn. The turns move very fast, and I just love it. Gizmos, my strategy game of the year. All right, game of the year. Wow. Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait just a little bit, because I'm going to announce my game of the year when I do my top 10 games of 2018. It's going to be coming later this week. So keep your eyes peeled. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that to make sure you don't miss it. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed getting all these games on your radar. If you hadn't heard of some of these, again, all the links to all my reviews of these games are in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, building relationships through board games by helping you find the next one you'll love. Upgrade your gaming experience with Game Toppers, and until the end of the year with the huge Christmas sale, get 15 to 20% off accessories, thematic mats, storage bags, and rail bundles while supplies last at GameToppersLLC.com.